Chapter 52-29. This is the second stage, and there is a third stage behind. Moreover, the Xuanwu temple has been accelerating in the world, and has cultivated for thousands of years. With the correct guidance of the Qishan temple, it will soon be a large number of large groups. When Yangxian appears, he will have to repeat the same mistakes. Screening at this scale, the treasures of the Temple of Qishan are consumed very quickly, and under the endless accumulation of treasures, there may not be a few eye-catching powerhouses in the end. Among the hundreds of millions of Dayan immortals, it may be finally screened, and there are only less than 10,000 people who can enter the threshold of the Temple of Forbidding God. Yangxian, Dayanxian, Emperor. Every step is extremely difficult: the difficulty of Master Yangxian mastering Dao, the difficulty of Da Yangxian combining Dao, the difficulty of Emperor wanting to reach the top. These are not treasures that can be pushed flatly, except for the treasures, the cruel rules that can help them. A 9 primordial star feathered the continent. Broken. Hua Qing shouted angrily, swept the long stick, directly shattering the broken army's divine body, and the origin was all withered. Stop. Po Jun couldn't hold on anymore, and he couldn't run away if he wanted to retreat. What many strong people look at is trembling. I originally thought that Hua Qing would fall today, and Lord Wu Dao came personally, but I didn't expect much to end up like this in the end. First, Jian Wushuang was born, and defeated Daojun Lungshuang upset, and then Daojun Wanxing revealed the half-step emperor's means to frighten everyone. Now Hua Qing is fighting the army and begging for mercy. This battle will change the division of the Eclosion continent. At least Jian Wushuang and Hua Qing are already ranked among the Dao monarchs, and they are still the top Dao monarchs. Wanxing Daojun's eyes revealed the intent to fight. Hui Qing's strength indeed exceeded his expectations, but it was also the best. He wanted this kind of opponent. On this primordial star, he hadn't paid attention to the other 4 Dao monarchs from the beginning. Whether it was Lung Shuang or Blood Moon, the only breaking army who felt a little bit interesting was now beaten up by Hui Qing, which was utterly devastated. As for the Daoist Sundering Heaven, his strength just touched Daoist, and he has been using a secret treasure fox to fake tiger power. Among the 5 avenues, his strength is the weakest, and even the 6th-ranked Ji Chaoyang can resist him. Puff. A stick pierced Po Jun's chest. Hui Qing stood proudly in the void, and said coldly, "Hand over the token, you can spare your life." Although his personality has changed drastically, the kindness in this life has not been shaken. If you can kill it, you can't kill it. Jian Wushuang was watching from the side anxiously. If it weren't for Wanxing Daojun to stare at him, he would want to rush over and break the army. The second-ranked Taoist monarch may have hundreds of millions of records on his body. If he is beheaded, the two will evenly divide the record and win the first and second place of this original star. There are not many such opportunities. If it were normal, without the strength of Wanxing, it would be too difficult to kill Daojun. Since the matter has reached this point, Wanxing didn't say anything, and the other Dao monarchs didn't dare to act rashly. Seeing the tragedy of the broken army, it is inevitable that some rabbits and foxes are sad. Once aloft, now the throne is broken. Especially the Daoist Sundering Heaven, his title is very arrogant, but since seeing Wenxing show his true strength, he has no trace of arrogance at all. His strength is okay to bully those half-walkers. As far as the current situation is, he is the weakest among his peers. Relying on which secret treasure in his body, he reached the level of Dao Sovereign. In the outside world, he has been low-key, just an ordinary peak of the Great Emperor. Since arriving in the Temple of Qishan, he has no scruples, and then he fully uses the secret treasure in his body, and his combat power has soared to Dao Sovereign level. This secret treasure came in a wrong way, and he didn't dare to use it outside. He glanced at the defeated army, and finally focused on Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang also felt the gaze, frowned slightly, and looked at Dao Sovereign Tear Heaven. Such blatant gaze is disrespectful to the strong, even if he is of the same rank. In an unfamiliar situation, such gaze, Jian Wushuang did not give the opponent a good expression. His face was furious. Although he didn't know much about these Dao monarchs, looking and observing it, the Dao monarch tearing heaven was the most inconspicuous among the 5 Dao monarchs. He was not afraid at all. The emperor present could threaten him as well as the Wanxing Daojun. Besides, Hui Qing's strength is terrible now. Together, even Wanxing is not afraid. The severely wounded Bro Jun clutched his broken chest, crouched and turned his head to look at a few Dao monarchs watching the show, feeling a chill in his heart. A wise life, bewildered for a while. If he could seriously hurt Hui Qing, I am afraid that these people will stand on his side, and even besiege Hui Qing together. Even if he does not get the inheritance, it is a good thing to accept the record. But now, it was him who was injured, but these people blocked the way. God wants him to die. Handing over the identity token is simply a delusion. He has worked hard all his life in exchange for this strength, and now he can get great fortune in the Temple of Chishan. How can he give up like this? You don't want it. Hui Qing's long stick swept away, her eyes shrank, and a naïs intent to kill appeared. Although he doesn't like killing, he is not a virgin either. Jian Wushuang nodded to the side. This is the right way. I really don't want to do it, but he also solved the second-ranked Dao Jun for Hui Qing. Haha. Po Jun laughed frantically, straightened up slowly, glanced at several Dao Jun coldly, and mocked, "You stinky kid, do you think I will bow to you?" The strong. At this moment, the broken army revealed the posture of a strong man. Jian Wushuang frowned. He was too familiar with this momentum, and he had seen many strong people, whether it was Yangxian or Dianxian, or those strong in the Supreme period. They all have the aura of Po Jun now. The strong are not divided into ranks. The strong in the Supreme and the strong in the Emperor are the same. They are invincible at the same level. How can they reluctantly bow their heads at the same level, even if they are dead? Let's do it. Let the old man see what else you can do. Breaking the army was not desperately defending at this moment, but took out all the strengths in one, fighting back. If he could escape, he would have escaped long ago, and the other Taoists would not let the tiger go back to the mountain. Good. Hui Qing understood what the other party meant and nodded slowly. This time he didn't use the silver long stick again, but slowly raised his finger, a very random finger, a breath that shook the world and the earth rushed out. This breath made the quartet world rise, and the deadly primordial star trembled. The dazzling light shot from the fingertips, and a beam of light that ruined the world shot out. The dazzling light made Po Jun couldn't open his eyes, biting his scalp and glaring, only to find that he didn't even have the ability to resist. Puff! The powerful light passed through Po Jun's body, his entire physical body was wiped out by the light, the divine body was completely shattered, and the origin was like a withered flower, gradually withering. Chapter 52:30. The dazzling light did not dissipate for a long time. Lung Shuang and tearing the sky were good. Hiding far away, Daojun Blood Moon, who was blocked by Wanxing, was covered in cold sweat behind him. He was just preparing to join the battle and besiege Hui Qing. If Wenxing hadn't stopped him, I'm afraid he will not be much different from Po Jun's fate now. At that time, the broken army was injured. Even if the two of them went together, they would definitely not be Hui Qing's opponent. Wanxing Daojun's expression was also full of shock. He was too familiar with the breath that burst out from that finger just now. It was a top-notch jerk, much stronger than the he had cultivated. Is this the preference of the Temple of Fortune? Wenxing couldn't help but sucked in a cold breath, and he already had half the power of the Emperor in that blow. This is nothing, everyone present, only Jian Wushuang knows, Hui Qing is only 9th rank. Rank 9 has half a step of the Emperor's strength. How terrifying this is. I am afraid that those 5th-order Emperors were not so abnormal when they were in the 9th rank Dayan Immortal. It's a monster. Jian Wushuang mastered the extreme Dao, and only after he became rank 9, did he barely reach the level of Dao Sovereign, and Hui Qing took a half-step directly to the Emperor. Originally thought that after entering the 9th rank, he would be able to get rid of all the same ranks and truly be invincible at the same rank, but now it seems that he thinks too much. It is a fact that Hui Qing is stronger than him. The Dayan Immortals on the periphery moved tens of thousands of miles at this time, and the strong light made them unable to see exactly what happened. The light faded, the aura of breaking the army was shattered, and the aura of the demon monk Hui Qing was still there. Broken army has fallen? Some people can't believe that a Daoist who ranked 2nd in the record list has fallen. How is this possible? The demon monk can actually kill Dao Jun. The sky is about to change, everyone prepare to leave the Eclosion continent. The emerging continent is really going to change, and now Dao monarchs are in danger of losing their lives, let alone those half-walking Dao monarchs. A 9 original star, record ranking. First, Demon Monk Huiqing 2nd, Blood Moon Daoist 3rd, Lungshuang Daojun 4th, Swordsman of Heaven 5th, Wanxing Daojun Huiqing wins the first prize. 10 billion record. Huiqing sighed secretly in her heart. Originally, he planned to divide half of his record to Jian Wushuang, but Pejuan was unwilling to hand over the token. Brother Wushuang. Huiqing put away her whole body, her aura became gentler, and she leaped to Jian Wushuang's side. Brother Wushuang, thanks a lot this time. Jian Wushuang didn't care, shrugged, and said flatly, "It has nothing to do with me, even if I don't come, why don't they come to you? Not to mention the power of the ray of light just now, just relying on the combat power that can crush the army, other Dao monarchs can't come to Huiqing. As for the Wanxing Daojun, even if he is not an opponent, he can still escape. The reason why the broken army has reached such a point is that it was careless at the beginning, and it was absolutely foolproof. As a result, he lost his life and couldn't escape. The 5 great lords are not a group at first, they are all cruel figures who kill you when you are sick." This record. Huiqing was a little embarrassed, holding her identity token a little embarrassed. Jian Wushuang saw his scruples, patted his shoulder heavily, jokingly said, "Why, less than a year, you have begun to pity me, don't forget that you used to be a little novice with your legs, to the point of relying on others to give arms to the rankings." Recalling that the weak little novice monk who had to hold his thighs when escaping, is now so strong that Jian Wushuang is very emotional, really good luck. Those few of his masters can be stunned. Wan Xing Daojun looked at Jian Wushuang and Huiqing frowned slightly. The relationship between the two was unusual, otherwise Jian Wushuang would not directly attack Daojun without knowing anything. It seems to be the friend of life and death. This kind of person is much more reliable than the so-called allies, life and death acquaintances, fateful friendships, the kind who can give their backs to the opponent in battle. This dispute now seems to be the same. I am afraid it is not realistic to want to fight again. The trial is now worthy of the past 10 years, and it is not yet time for a big battle. Lung Shuang was injured, the strength of tearing the sky was not enough, and the moon's combat power was average. Huiqing and him were the ones who could really fight on this primordial star. As for Jian Wushuang, although the methods are weird, in the face of absolute strength, all sidelines are vulnerable to a single blow. Monk. Wan Xing's eyes turned to look at Huiqing, with a sharp aura. Huiqing turned and looked back, putting a smile on her face, as if she was facing an enemy. Wanxing. Jian Wushuang didn't panic at the back of his hands, his thought power was very strong, not to mention the half-step emperor, even the emperor was not as good as him, he was able to sense that the Wanxing Daojun had war intent, but he had no determination. In this battle, the 8 achievements ended in the defeat of the army, and if the battle continued, it was a battle of spirits. Huiqing was inherited and cultivated his utmost knowledge. They were willing to come over to be a sharpening stone. Huiqing Mai would be a dead word if he didn't pass, but if he passed, he would be a carp leaping over the dragon gate. From then on, this primitive star is no longer threatening. The first throne is also extremely stable, no one can shake it. But other people don't have the powerful thought power of Jian Wushuang, and Yu can spy on others at any time. What they saw was that another world-destroying battle was about to take place, and they were now beginning to fear that these Taoists would suddenly come to sweep them, and they retreated tens of millions of miles away to keep a safe distance. "Let's fight. You are all dead, and I am the number 1 Ji Chaoyang." Ji Chaoyang, who is second only to Daojun in strength, was very low-key in this battle, and had no idea of going up and taking part. He has inheritance and unique knowledge, and there is no shortage of treasures. In addition to his strength, he is very similar to God Emperor Morlong. Mo Long's strength is the ultimate emperor, but he can reach the level of a half-step Dao monarch, even comparable to that of a Dao monarch. "No, I really want to fight." Everyone was squeezing sweat in their hearts, and their throats raised their hearts. If you really want to fight again, it will be good for them, and the strongest at the top will almost die, and they won't be the top. But there is also one thing they are afraid of, that is, no matter who wins or loses, the The one who survives will become the strongest of this primordial star, without restraint and control and wanton slaughter. They dare not imagine that scene. At that time, all ants under Tao sovereign, there is no level to be divided, they are all prey. Guru. Many people were watching their every move, as if they were about to grasp the moment they were doing it. The few at the core, except Jian Wushuang, all clenched their fists, and the sweat on their palms was enough to prove how nervous they were. Wanxing Daojun breath rises like a long dragon, standing in the void is like the master of that void. This is a sign of stepping into the threshold of the origin of space. Jian Wushuang is also frightened when he sees it, the origin of space. Chapter 52:31. That is the powerful source cultivated by the emperors. Look at it, it's time to do it. Many people on the periphery exclaimed, and couldn't help but retreat thousands of miles away. At this moment, everyone held their breath and stared at Daojun Wanxing. He raised his hand slightly and the corners of his mouth opened slightly. Congratulations. Wanxing Daojun, with a smile on his serious face, clasped his fists in his hands. Hoo. A rush of gasps could be heard through Jian Wushuang thousands of miles away. Gone. The faces of many powerful people turned red, and finally Wanxing Daojun actually uttered these two words. Even Lung Shuang and Dao Shaotian took a deep breath, really wanting to fight, and really don't know who they are going to help. It's no good for her to help Wanxing, and it's no good to leave. Fighting at this level and fishing in troubled waters are in danger of falling. It's best to end the game. The other Dao monarchs, even if they are reluctant, but now Wen Xing, as a half-step emperor, has taken the initiative to try it out, and congratulated Hui Qing for getting the inheritance of the Temple of Qi. Ji Chaoyang, who had been watching from a distance, saw that after not fighting, he flew over without any fear. Haha, it's too late to come down. Seeing people coming, everyone looked at it together. Fortunately, Wanxing and the others knew the person in front of him, but it was the first time that Hui Qing saw him, and when he saw someone coming, he also leaked a hint of curiosity. Seeing that no one introduced him, Ji Chaoyang cheeked, coughed, and solemnly said, "Let me introduce my identity first. I am the Ji family dynasty, the first Daoist in the contemporary era, Ji Chaoyang." Mph, it's still so shameless. The Taoist Ripper frowned and said mockingly, "This season Chaoyang's strength is not weak at all. Although he hasn't reached the level of Taoist monarchs, it is almost the same. Moreover, this guy is quite good at picking people, and has been pestering him, fighting and not running, as if he was a grindstone. Because of this, the master of the heaven-tearing heaven is extremely disgusted with this person." Jian Wushuang mobilized his thoughts and observed Ji Chaoyang, but he leaked a hint of smile, his face appeared a touch of playfulness, and he took the initiative to sign up for Jian Wushuang. Hui Qing. How could Ji Chaoyang think that these two peerless and ruthless people were so easy to talk? They started to speak familiarly. Brother Hui and Brother Wushuang are so powerful that they make Xia feel inferior, and I really admire Xia extremely. Life is in danger, come and make friends with the two. I think you are just a piece of dogskin plaster, catch who is sticking to who. Daotian Xuantian sneered unscrupulously. Ji Chaoyang's complexion changed, and he became angry. Tear the sky, what do you mean? It's fine to look down on the next, and even dared to turn around and curse Brother Hui and Brother Wushuang. Don't think you are a Daoist and I am afraid of you. I joined forces with Brother Hui Wushuang, and I can deal with you more than just rubbing. Daojun Wanxing frowned. He originally wanted to find out what kind of genius Hui Qing cultivated, but now he was disturbed by this stuff, so he didn't know how to speak. The Daoist swordsman standing on the side was even more so annoyed that he couldn't speak, pointing to Ji Chaoyang's face blushing, and he couldn't say a word. Jian Wushuang glanced at a few people, and finally stayed on Xie Tian, and said coldly, "Forget it, I'll pass Hui Qing and I'll ignore the villain. Xie Tian will speak carefully next time." His eyes stared at Dao Shou Tian without any scruples, and his powerful thought power directly wrapped the opponent's body. That's it. No wonder tearing the sky watching him from time to time, and at first thought that this kid had a hobby of short sleeves, but there was another reason. With a trace of ancient aura, Jian Wushuang keenly sensed the familiar feeling in the opponent's body. Te Tian's face was gloomy at this time, he didn't know whether Jian Wushuang was really angry, or he noticed something was wrong. No matter what the possibility, he didn't want to stay here anymore. Leave that thing where you are for a while, and I will take it back sooner or later. Dao Shou Tian secretly vowed in his heart. Even if you are seriously injured, you have to take it. He was afraid that Jian Wushuang had been following Hui Qing, so that he had no chance at all and had to leave now. Everyone, I'll say goodbye first. Dao Jun said in a low voice. His figure flashed back 10,000 miles, and then burst out with all his strength, but the breath disappeared into the void in an instant. Shuiyue and Longshuang Daojun are also afraid that Wanxing and Hui Qing will conspire together, and they will bid farewell and leave. If they meet again, it is estimated that they will fight for life and death. As soon as these people left, Ji Chaoyang was also a little panicked. Looking left and right, now that anyone on the court can abuse him, especially Hui Qing, he can feel the intense silence. When encountering such an opponent, he will undoubtedly die. Unless you use the transfer order granted by your clan, you can escape. Hui Qing, I'm very curious, why you were suddenly given the inheritance from the Temple of Chishan. Wanxing still spoke, but he knew that even if he knew these things, it was impossible to tell him, so he tactfully said, if it is inconvenient, don't speak. Hui Qing sighed lightly, and said gravely, it's not that I don't want to say, I don't know why I suddenly accepted the inheritance of the Temple of Chishan. Daojun Wanxing nodded, looking at Hui Qing's eyes. He could feel that the other party did not seem to be lying. Of course, he could not rule out Hui Qing is a master of lying, and he blurted out the lie without missing the slightest. The flaws. Jian Wushuang, who was standing by, frowned. Wanxing was indeed asking too abruptly, and Hui Qing had a good temper. If it were him, a sword would go out and ask the sword. Based on his understanding of Hui Qing, what Hui Qing said just now was indeed not a lie. He was originally curious, but now that he knows it, he has fulfilled his curiosity. Inheritance, unique learning. Now Jian Wushuang has seen its power. No matter how strong his Dao is, he has no treasures and no powerful inheritance, his combat power will fall a lot. When Hui Qing accepted the inheritance, he was only a half-step prince, and now he was almost half-step an emperor. He is also rank 9, and he is at the level of Dao sovereign if he hasn't cultivated his geniuses. If he cultivates his geniuses, he will be able to show up to 12% of his combat power. By then, his strength will also increase sharply, and he should not be weak. You Hui Qing. Okay, since that's the case, I will also leave first. Wanxing Daojun always maintained a gentle posture. Although the initial problem was a little uncomfortable, Jian Wushuang was also impressed by him. The former Jiuyu Daoist, and now Wanxing. Jian Wushuang has seen the style of the top powerhouse in other worlds in the universe. The Dao monarchs left one after another on the field. Now Jian Wushuang, Hui Qing and Ji Chaoyang are left. Jian Wushuang turned his eyes to each other and said, Brother Ji, you are hiding enough. As soon as these words came out, Hui Qing's expression was overwhelmed, and her breath rose sharply. Ji Chaoyang's complexion changed drastically, putting away the playfulness he had just now, and hurriedly backed away. But where can he retreat? The world of heart swords has already quietly arrived, and the powerful heart and sword intent have made Ji Chaoyang frightened. Chapter 52-32. He found that the moving order had been invalidated, but how active his mind was that he couldn't command the moving order. He was about to cry in a hurry now. What the is this? Hui Qing watched for a long time and found that Ji Chaoyang had been standing still, without the slightest aura of threat, looking at Jian Wushuang in doubt. Hui Qing, don't get too excited. Jian Wushuang pressed his hand, and then faintly said, Brother Ji, don't get too excited. If you were to deal with you, you would have died 10,000 times earlier. He didn't scare the opponent by this, and he really wanted to use it to swallow the opponent within 10 moves. He had information. If it was someone else with a solid record, he would really be a black hand, but Ji Chaoyang is not ordinary, because they are of the same kind. They are all 9-rank Dian immortals. Jian Wushuang had a direct showdown, telling the true state of Ji Chaoyang. As soon as this remark came out, Hui Qing was shocked before he had time. Ji Chaoyang took a deep breath, covered his mouth with both hands, and screamed hard. Are you an emperor? Ji Chaoyang let go of his hand covering his mouth, and tremblingly raised his finger to Jian Wushuang. The transfer order and the Zhenxin talisman, these are the innate top treasures given to him by his father, one for escape and the other for hiding power. His father once told him that the Zhenxin talisman can hide his breath and strength, and the biggest use is to hide his realm. Even the emperor can hardly see his true realm. Now Jian Wushuang saw it through. He admired his father very much, and he was a very firm believer. Can see his true state, then only the emperor. Jian Wushuang was dumbfounded by his action. I am not an emperor, but I have a treasure that can see the true state of the other party. It is a bit tasteless, but it comes in handy here. The ninth rank Dian immortal, but he has the strength of a half-trouble monarch. Brother Ji is extremely talented, admire it. Hui Qing's eyes beamed, and he shouted admiration. Jian Wushuang also said, could it be that Brother Ji is the ultimate existence? After confirming that the two were not malicious to him, Ji Chaoyang let out a sigh of relief, and soon turned into that kind of cynical gesture. Haha, Brother Wushuang has a good eye, it is indeed the ninth rank Dian immortal, that is, an ordinary ultimate way, and it is not the two brothers for the time being. Ji Chaoyang coughed a few times, and was humble. Jian Wushuang showed surprise on the surface, but he was funny in his heart. If it's so predestined, why don't we talk? Then it's better to be respectful. Ji Chaoyang also wanted to make friends with strong men like Jian Wushuang and Hui Qing, and did not refuse. If the two wanted to deal with him, he had indeed been several times earlier, so it would be better to take the opportunity to win him and have a backer. He currently has a long way to go to the ninth rank to achieve consummation, and he also needs a strong ally. As the three left together, there was no one on this battlefield, and the silence was restored. Hiss! The space split, and a huge castle fell from the sky, slamming heavily on the ground. Said it is a castle, in fact it is more like a city. It has a length and width of tens of thousands of miles, and it is the size of some mundane planets. The fortress fell, and the messenger of the Vermilion Bird Palace escaped from a crystal-clear white crystal ball and threw it into the castle. Then her figure disappeared, and she went to the next primitive star. And Jiajiao primitive star trembles at this moment. The war has just ended, and a new storm will soon be set off. The white orb fell into the castle, and a sky pillar burst out, leading directly to the barrier at the highest point in the void. After touching the Tianzhu, the enchantment of the entire primordial star made a crackling sound. Such a big movement caused all the Dian immortals on the primordial star to rise and go straight into the void. The hundreds of thousands of Dian immortals who were still alive looked at the enchantment exuding the lightning silver snake and couldn't help but gasp. What are you doing? Everyone issues questions at the same time. What the are you doing at the Temple of Chishan? I just found a cave, and before I had time to communicate the ultimate way, I was disturbed by this movement. Jian Wushuang and the three of them leaped into the air one after another, and the powerful aura directly radiated out without hesitation. After all, one of the strongest players of this primitive star right now is that Jian Wushuang is at the level of Dao Sovereign, and even Ji Chaoyang can be comparable to Dao Sovereign. The three of them walked sideways on the primordial star and none of them could threaten them. Who is so courageous, dare to disturb a few of our brothers? I want to see who is so courageous. The treasure Ji Chaoyang uses is a sword that opens the sky, and the light blue breath surrounds the sword. He directly carried on his shoulders, stood swaggering in the void, and roared. Hui Qing was as calm as ever, looking up at that level of enchantment. Disturbed. A strong sense of anxiety made Jian Wushuang very uncomfortable. What kind of trick is this Temple of Fortune playing? Didn't it say that it's been a trial for 30 years? Is this a remorse? Don't look down on them like these people, want to drive them out. Wouldn't it be so stingy? This is also to blame for the original guardian who left the token and left. Because of the short words of token, there are only 3 to 500,000 Dian immortals left. What are you going to do now? Jian Wushuang's thoughts spread out and he scanned the surroundings for thousands of miles. At the same time, the Dian immortal in the mountains also broke out of the sky. No matter how strong it was not hiding. Divine Emperor Mo Long, who had been hidden for a long time, also broke ground. Although all the treasures were lost, His perfect flesh and powerful divine body were still there. In the past 2 years, he had regained most of his strength by virtue of his strong background. This call, it comes from the Eclosian continent. Mo Long hesitated in his heart. Now he is a useless man, a savage without an identity token. Do you want to go? There may be a silver lining to go, and there is nothing if you don't go. Humph. Mo Long snorted coldly. An ordinary 9-ranked perfect Dian immortal actually dared to fly in front of him, grab him casually. When I asked, I realized that something really happened in Yuhua continent. Countless powerhouses are flying in the direction of the Eclosian continent, and Mo Long has also joined them. Some of the top Dian immortals who had just left the emerging continent, and even the pinnacle Dian immortal, also changed their directions and returned to the emerging continent. All this is not only the call, but also the change in the identity token. On Jian Wushuang's side, he took out the token at random and looked at the change above. His eyes trembled. Primal Star, the first stage of the highest trial is completed. Finally ranked 21st. Trial, Jian Wushuang. Record conversion, 1,000 treasure points. Is it 1,000? This is not the key. What is more serious is the final ranking. He has the heart to die. In the past, he didn't care too much, but now that Hui Qing is so strong after getting a quake, how can he be willing to rank so low? Obviously have the strength to enter the top 10, or even the top 3. Now everything is back to 0, and the ranking is solidified. Chapter 52-33. Too big. Jian Wushuang's heart was bleeding. The Temple of Chishan, the 10th year of the highest trial of Dian Immortal, is also the 10th year of the advent of the new era. The Primal Star trial opens the second phase. The call in the dark made them unable to take care of so much, so they could only gather towards the guiding place. Jian Wushuang also put away the token, looked at the center of Yuhua continent with a heavy expression, and said solemnly, "You have also sensed it?" Hui Qing and Ji Chaoyang nodded at the same time. Then go and see what tricks the Temple of Chishan is playing again. Boom. The 3 of them exploded at the same time and hurried to the place where they were directed. On the road, the Peak Dian Immortal or the Extreme Dian Immortal all marched towards that position in unison. Jian Wushuang and others were very close to that location. Only an hour's journey away, they saw the magnificent city that appeared out of thin air. At this time, many strong people have gathered here. They just arrived, and they attracted everyone's attention. After all, Hui Qing is now one of the strongest in this primitive star, and everyone has already reclassified them. Hui Qing didn't compare much, forcibly killed the second-ranked Pejuan, ranked first in record, and had been secretly called the Half-Step Emperor. The same is true for Wanqing. He used to be Wanqing Daojun, but now Wanqing Heavenly Emperor. The 2 powerhouses are the only ones on this primitive star. After that, Jian Wushuang and Shuiwa were powerhouses at the Taoist level, but seeing that Ji Chaoyang was now following Jian Wushuang and Hui Qing, they also assigned Ji Chaoyang to the Taoist level. This breath. Jian Wushuang looked at the heavy breath of the city. This is the heavy lifelessness in the ancients, he is very familiar with it. The 3 came under the gate of the giant city, looking at the city surrounded by mist. Qiu Huangcheng. Jian Wushuang looked at the memorial arch on the city gate and muttered silently. The font is naturally ancient characters, but the primordial star universe has recorded such characters. As a strong Dian immortal, Jian Wushuang can deduce and comprehend ancient language with just a glance. It's just that these 3 words give him the feeling that it is too old, and even has a feeling of looking through time and space. The breath of just 3 words makes people throb. The emperor did not have such a majestic momentum when he visited in person. Brother Wushuang, don't look at it too much. The power of these 3 words is beyond our cognition. The rules are messy and interfere with the mind. Hui Qing just glanced at it, then lowered her eyebrows, and quickly reminded Jian Wushuang. Indeed, as Hui Qing said, there are too many things wrapped in these 3 ancient texts, and it is indeed not to be seen more. I am afraid that only the emperor can understand the rules contained therein. However, Jian Wushuang's state of mind was so powerful that he had already reached the 4th level, and this little interference could not affect him. It's okay, anyway, Well, go in and explore. Jian Wushuang said casually. Since this city suddenly appeared here, it must have some contact with them. It is impossible for them to create a city for them to watch. Look at the city wall. Ji Chaoyang couldn't help exclaiming. Point to the traces of depressions in the ravines on the wall. Jian Wushuang also turned his eyes to look, and when he saw the bottomless gullies, the corners of his eyes shook. It's Mark. At this time, more and more Dayan immortals arrived outside the city, and they all went to the city gate to watch them first, and then went to study the sword marks that ran through the ravines. Jian Wushuang sat down cross-legged, carefully comprehending the thick sword marks, and even a trace of sword intent remained deep in the marks. Although these sword intents are very inconspicuous, Jian Wushuang, who is also a great swordsman, looks carefully. Twilight, strand by strand. The sword intent is very ordinary, but even if it fades to this now, these sword intents still contain a kind of Tao. Jian Wushuang took a breath. According to his strength, a sword cannot leave anything in Qiuhuang City, let alone make every trace of sword meaning contain Tao. The difference between him and that kendo master is not even a star. Is the emperor so strong? Jian Wushuang began to doubt life. He has also seen a lot of emperors and strong men, and he still knows a little about emperors. But the Tao contained in the sword intent of this powerful kendo is too powerful. If his current ultimate path is just a piece of grass, then the powerful path of this kendo is like a whole forest. I originally thought that even if I was not a half-step emperor, he would soon touch the emperor level, but now it seems that the difference is too much. In other words, this emperor is much stronger than the emperor he has seen. With a movement of Jian Wushuang's thoughts, it turned into an illusory arm and slowly approached the sword mark, gently stroking, feeling the sword intent more closely. Outside Qiuhuang's city, there were barriers and the Dayan immortals couldn't get close at all, and Jian Wushuang could only use his powerful thoughts to penetrate the barriers before they could touch them. The ultimate sword Tao has now reached the 6th level, and it is still related to the heart sword. Although the dual strength avenue is more powerful, he wants to get rid of the intrusion of external forces and create the purest kendo. The mental power originally played the role of assistance, but now? At the 5th level of the ultimate kendo, the world of heart swords is realized, and the 6th level is the heart sword test. Now his kendo is too complicated, is not pure enough, he needs to transcend himself, get rid of the dominance of his mental strength, and realign his kendo. That sword intent. So he is very eager to see how the emperor-level swordsmanship is different, and what is contained in it, to help him confuse the emperor-level swordsmanship. Just as Nian Li entered the gully, it was met with strong resistance. This strength comes from that trace of sword intent. Jian Wushuang's heart was horizontal, and his whole body was concentrated, turning into a dexterous little hand, constantly grabbing towards that trace of sword intent. Starve to death the timid, support the daring to death. Jian Wushuang was going to grab that trace of sword intent with his thoughts. This was too important to him. Countless powerful people around are copying the various traces on the city wall, which has already benefited them a lot. If they can capture a trace of the emperor's way, it will be a great opportunity. Almost. The illusory arm that Nian Li turned into was only a short distance away. But even at this distance, no matter how hard he increased the intensity of his thought power, he couldn't catch that hint of sword intent. The mobilization of the whole body's mind power made Jian Wushuang sweat all over his head. Hui Qing and Ji Chaoyang also noticed the movement on his side. They wanted to inquire but were afraid to interfere with Jian Wushuang, so they could only stand by his side and guard against other people's interference. Jian Wushuang devoted himself wholeheartedly, his eyes closed tightly. Damn it, this distance can't be crossed at all. Jian Wushuang felt that he was being tricked, giving him hope, and making him unable to do it. The closer he felt the hint of sword intent, the more he yearned for it. This strand of sword intent gave him the feeling he thought was the purest Tao. As long as he could capture it and then swallow it with thought power, he would be able to obtain the kendo contained in that pure sword intent. Chapter 52-34. Call. Jian Wushuang was about to give up. There were too many people here, and he didn't dare to make much movement. But when he was about to put away his thought power, that ray of sword intent came out actively. Jian Wushuang was ecstatic, and he quickly wrapped it carefully with thought power, enduring the encroachment of the sword intent. Fortunately, what he was practicing was the ultimate kendo. Although he still rejected it, he was able to resist it. But Jian Wushuang didn't dare to look down upon this ray of sword intent. Don't look at it as a trace, but he was still rubbing it. Wrap carefully, and step by step withdrawing from the gully. After the unreal arm got out of the gully, it was obvious that the trace of sword intent was weakening. Jian Wushuang couldn't control anything else, and immediately swallowed it. Illusory arm, spreading 5 fingers, swallowing that strand of sword intent. All of this is done in the barrier, so people outside can't find it at all. It was obvious that after the ultimate kendo gained a point, Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes. The original kendo in the sword intent, he instantly grasped. After all, it was already integrated. Prison cage. Jian Wushuang trembled slightly, evaporating the sweat on his body. This is what he learned from that ray of sword intent. It's a pity that there are too few. If there is more, then his ultimate kendo may really break through. He took a deep breath and found that Hui Qing and Ji Chaoyang were around him when he wanted to get up. Brother Wushuang, did you find something? Ji Chaoyang asked curiously. Like other people, they can only comprehend some of the gaps that are more compatible with them, but they have very little insight from them. They can only be regarded as a rare sacred place for cultivation, which can be hundreds of times stronger than the outside world. It's just that they can't stay in this primordial star for long. They can only scan a little bit and look at all the gullies. The amount of goods they receive depends on their ability. It is not the time to retreat here. There are some small gains. This gully is a great help for me from a kendo master. Jian Wushuang nodded. Although he didn't tell the truth, he didn't say anything wrong. This is indeed a sword mark left by a sword master, and the harvest is indeed good, at least helping him find the direction of breakthrough. Ji Chaoyang was a little disappointed. He originally thought Jian Wushuang had discovered something, but now it seems to be no different from others. On the second day after arriving here, the 10,000-star Heavenly Emperor also descended outside Qiuhuang's city. Like them, the Emperor Wanqing first glanced at the memorial arch on the city gate, then took a lap, and found a place to sit cross-legged and comprehend the traces on the city wall. When sitting cross-legged, he also glanced at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang studied kendo attentively and ignored it, but Ji Chaoyang shrank his neck and hid behind Hui Qing. Goodness! Hui Qing understood the 10,000-star Heavenly Emperor's war intentions, that sooner or later he would not be able to escape. Fortunately, the opponent also knows that now is not the time to go to war. Everything in the outside world can't interfere with Jian Wushuang's obsession with kendo. In the source, his avatar sits cross-legged in the ocean of the source, devoting himself to practicing. No, this road will not work. The villain with Jian Wushuang's appearance shook his head. He had already played tens of thousands of swords, but he still couldn't find a way to break through. The origin path has a qualitative change every 3 layers, and the difficulty of entering the 7th layer now is countless times more difficult than the previous breakthroughs. The previous 2 breakthroughs were all because of mental strength, and he broke through by letting the flow go. Now, getting rid of mental strength to break through is no different from climbing to the sky. It's too difficult. You can't even find a clue. Countless thoughts rose in his mind. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed a bright light, and the thoughts in his mind when his eyes were opened immediately disappeared. He has been entangled with the sword intent in that sword mark. There are so many marks on this city wall, maybe there are sword marks. There should be sword intent in this sword mark, and there should be other sword marks. Snapped. Jian Wushuang snapped to his feet, very fast, and immediately flew towards other areas. Sure enough, there are other sword marks. I was too excited just now and forgot about it. Like last time, his mind power turned into an illusory arm, entered the enchantment to touch the sword mark, and finally entered the depths of the sword mark to search for the sword intent. Now, in his kendo origin, there is a trace of sword intent origin. Those remaining sword intent, when encountering Jian Wushuang's illusory arm, he thought it was the same kind, so he took the initiative to come by. This made Jian Wushuang overjoyed, and he obtained a trace of the origin of sword intent without any effort. He was not in a hurry to enlighten, but wandered in front of the ravines to collect the origin of sword intent. The city of Huang, which is tens of thousands of miles long and wide, has a city wall that stretches for tens of thousands of miles. There are hundreds of millions of dense gullies on it, and there are hundreds of thousands of sword marks alone. Fortunately, the more sources of sword intent he swallowed, the easier it was to collect them, so he began to walk around Huang to find the source of sword intent step by step. His move was quickly discovered by other powerhouses. After all, Zhen Wushuang is now a man of the world, a powerhouse at the Taoist level, and every move will make others pay attention. At first, they also quietly followed Zhen Wushuang, carefully observing the place where Zhen Wushuang stopped to see www.mtlnovel.com. They found that they were all traces of kendo, which was of no use to them. Even the Dian Immortal who practiced the roots of kendo didn't notice that there was something wrong. Soon these people dispersed, leaving Zhen Wushuang alone to sweep the sword marks. It took 1 day, 2 days, and until a month later that Zhen Wushuang had wiped out all the sword marks. This time I made a lot of money. Zhen Wushuang licked his lips and his eyes lit up. The origin of a million Dao sword intent, once condensed, is no less than a complete Dao. Zhen Wushuang randomly found an open space and sat cross-legged. Millions of sword intent rose in the sea of his origin. Zhen Wushuang turned into a villain standing in it, shouting hey. Numerous kendo origins that had been swallowed began to fuse. The powerful sword intent made Zhen Wushuang ecstatic. It's a sword. The origin of the sword intent finally condensed an illusory long sword. Zhen Wushuang's heart moved, and from this illusory long sword, he saw a figure in white clothes shengxue. The ancient breath leaned from his body, and Zhen Wushuang's eyes shrank. The figure in between was holding a sword and was also outside a big city. According to Zhen Wushuang's speculation, it should be Huang. Wow! The sword in white robes with a sword, but there is no sharpness in the sword intent, no sharp means of breaking everything, but it fell in Huang city, but it turned into a cage, and the sword light turned into a ball. Wrapped by Zhen Wushuang looked carefully and found that the move was not that simple. A sword wrapped the entire Huang city, which seemed unrelenting, but in fact, billions of sword lights erupted inside, destroying Huang city in an instant. And the figure in white didn't even look at the city, his figure turned into a stream of light and disappeared instantly. Chapter 52-35. Zhen Wushuang was shocked by this short picture. It was just a sword that caused the ancient city of Huang to fall away, and the powerful kendo master left without even looking at it. Zhen Wushuang wasn't interested in the reason for it, he was calling for that sword even more now. The illusory long sword only evolved once and then began to collapse. Zhen Wushuang absorbed the powerful kendo origin, and eventually a large part of it entered his ultimate kendo, and he had no choice but to swallow a large part. He can only swallow about 20% of the origin of those Dian Immortals. This is the sword power of that swordsman power. Even if the origin contained in it is very rare, a part of it has been lost after so many years. Now he can still observe that again. One sword is already pretty good. Prison cage. Zhen Wushuang frowned. The sword of this kendo power is very similar to his heart sword world, but the world of the heart sword is not full, it is more like a piece of paper, and the sword of the kendo power is more like a paper rubbing into a sphere. Zhen Wushuang has a clue, but it is far from enough to make a breakthrough, but this time the receipt has already satisfied him very much. His figure turned, and he came to Hua Qing and the others. It has been a month now, Huang still didn't use a trace of movement, and they all began to be a little impatient. Fortunately, the ranking has been fixed, and now no one will actively provoke a fight. This place is also very suitable for cultivation. They are a little greedy for this big city when they wait. The traces of battle on the city wall alone were enough to benefit them a lot. Wouldn't there be more benefits in there? Huang was like a tempting piece of fat, and the saliva of these hungry wolves was about to flow out, but they just couldn't eat this piece of meat. Zhen Wushuang fell down and glanced around. This is the gate of the city. Most of the strong are here to comprehend. They also think that if the gate suddenly opens, they will be the first to enter. There are almost 400,000 cultivators here. Jian Wushuang glanced at the crowd and said lightly. Ji Chaoyang was also lazy to comprehend the traces on the city wall. He was very confident in his ultimate way. The battle traces left by these strong men were absolutely the same. After just a few glances, he waited boringly here. Now that Jian Wushuang came back, he leaked a smile. Brother Wushuang, be surprised. I didn't expect that there would be so many tortoises with shrunken heads. I thought there were only 100,000 people at most. Ji Chaoyang looked at those people, very disdainful. Jian Wushuang gave a faint smile, and didn't say much. When Ji Chaoyang first came to Primordial Star, he was estimated to have half the power of the Taoist king. He had no idea how difficult it was for the weak. He also fought with Hua Qing in the mountains, designing traps to kill those Dayan immortals. At that time, they also had the power of the peak Dayan immortal, and in the end they grew up in battle, slaying the limit Dayan immortal, and defeating the Emperor Morlong. After entering the Eclosion continent, he broke the cocoon and became a dish. Wait. It should be waiting for everyone. Jian Wushuang guessed. Qiu Huangcheng will be opened sooner or later, and it is estimated that there will be a time limit. Anyway, they are not waiting here in vain. Isn't there still those powerful battle traces for them to comprehend? The existence that can leave marks on this city wall is at least the strongest among the emperors. Especially the sword in white. Jian Wushuang's eyes were full of yearning. Powerful. Once the heart of the strong is planted, it can never stop. The white swordsman power left a strong stroke in Jian Wushuang's heart, and he broke the city with a single sword. Then the other traces must have been left by a strong man who was weaker than the white sword god. However, no matter how weak they are countless times stronger than them. While they were still waiting quietly, outside of the Yuhua continent, it was already difficult to see the cultivators. In a month's time, even if the 9th rank Dayan immortal drove with all his strength, he would almost reach the Yuhua continent. At this time, the sense of summoning is so strong, and there are still people who are unwilling to come. It is estimated that they are also completely hopeless. Darkness struck from the void, but in an instant it covered the mountains and then spread to the Eclosion continent. Those Dayan immortals who hadn't come to the Eclosia continent could not sit still anymore, and they walked out of the cave and soared into the air. What is this? A 9th turn perfect Dayan immortal looked at the covered darkness, shaking in his heart. Danger. A strong crisis came as soon as it was said. They didn't even have the heart to resist, and they all fled desperately. This scene is constantly being staged in other primordial stars. Inside the Suzaku temple. A month is too short. Zhuyi carried her hands behind her back and looked at a piece of the sky below the main hall. All the movements of the primitive stars were happening above. She calmly said, "It's not short, their time is precious. It has been wasted a month now. In a month's time, even if the speed is slow, I can reach the mainland. For such a long time, regardless of the call, I just want to sit down and shrink my head, a cowardly move. Zhuyi hates iron but not steel. The inheritance from this trial is extremely precious, and now I am giving them benefits. I don't cherish it, and I can't blame her for being cruel. She has given enough tips. If it is the old man of the spirit guard, it is estimated that he will not even leave the summoning crystal, so he will run away after passing down the inheritance. Inheritance is not for nothing, it's just an appetizer, to test their ambitions. If they don't have this ambition, the Temple of Chishan will not feed idlers. Those who have come outside Qiu Huang's city now haven't noticed any problems. They don't know it yet, they have passed the first level. The darkness struck, and those Dayan immortals who were in the darkness flee desperately, trying to rush out. Click. A Dayan immortal was broken by his waist, donating blood and spilling. In the darkness, a pair of scarlet eyes leaked out. Jie. The day that was killed, not only the body was eaten away, but even the original Dao was swallowed cleanly by these monsters. If Jian Wushuang saw them, I'm afraid he would call his own expert, and the complete Dao of a Dayan immortal was actually swallowed. It's clean and there is no waste. On swallowing, they are seniors. The darkness continued to expand, enveloping 90% of the area of the primordial star, and finally the source of darkness converged on the edge of the feathered continent and began to march. The rate of spread this time was a bit slow, but it was also several times faster than Dianxian, and it only took a quarter of an hour to reach Huangcheng. Hum. The Optimus pillar in Huang City shook, and a burst of hot light burst, as if shattered the barrier in the sky. 400,000 practitioners outside the city stood up and looked up. Crackling. The entire city shook, and finally the barrier that encased the city was shattered and turned into electric snakes swimming over Huang City. Chapter 52-36. Such a huge change made everyone react in an instant. Especially those Dian immortals who had been waiting outside the city gate from the beginning. They plunged into it as soon as the barrier was broken. Jian Wushuang frowned as he watched. What do these people think? Think of the Temple of Chishan as something. You don't really think that whoever enters has an advantage. Those who are not afraid of death have the cowardice. Those half-travel monarchs who had confidence in their own strength entered Huang City calmly, and Jian Wushuang and Hui Qing began to enter one after another. This is a recognition of your own strength. Even if you can get the treasure if you go in first, I can grab it. The city gate is very wide, thousands of miles long and wide. It was enough for them and the Dian immortals to enter together, but some people hesitated and wanted to enter at last. Whether it was for the purpose of picking up leaks, or holding the mentality of being a cannon fodder who entered in front, these people did not panic at all. In just one cup of tea, all 400,000 Dian immortals had entered Huang City, and there were 1,000 people left looking around, planning to wait. But at this moment, the gate of Wanli suddenly closed. Sure enough, this city is really strange. A rank 9 Dian immortal exhaled deeply, as if he had just escaped a catastrophe. Haha, even if you don't go in, whether it's good or bad, I can at least look at the traces left by these emperors on the outside of the city. The other Dian immortals also nodded. They were not good at first, and they probably didn't have much chance to go in, so they might as well just practice outside the city. It's over. Inside Huang City. Just after they entered the city, they were teleported to the wall. At this time, a Dian fairy stared at the people outside the city, and said with a trembling voice, "They are done." Jian Wushuang stood on the city wall, looking across the entire feathered continent, but the people outside the city couldn't see him. He could see any place outside the city, especially the darkness spreading from far away. Jie. A million miles away from Huang City, the darkness suddenly stopped spreading, but after it stopped, countless dark ghosts and demons suddenly rushed out. These ghosts are not like the ghosts after the Emperor's fall in the Great Wilderness. Jian Wushuang can clearly see that they are wise. Moreover, the strength of these ghosts and demons is at the rank 9 level at the lowest level, even the strong ones at the Taoist level. Only then did the thousands of people outside the city react, but they could enter Huang City no matter what. Temple of the Gods, enlighten me. These people are all cowardly people. And even the challenger's heart is not just thinking about entering Huang City to escape. Dead. The assault of death fell in an instant. A million li was only an instant of time. 1,000 people were no more than rubble, and they were shattered in an instant, and even a single wave could not be stirred. They can't get in. Jian Wushuang pressed his hand, and the retreating Dian immortals dared to approach the city head and look down. Sure enough, those ghosts and demons just wandered outside the city wall with their bodies surging. They had no intention of attacking Huangcheng at all. This made everyone breathe a sigh of relief. The ghosts outside the city were wandering, and there was a tremor in the city. Everyone stood on the city wall and descended into the city. Only then did Jian Wushuang notice the appearance of the entire city. The entire Huang City is divided into 4 areas, and they are in the East City. Jian Wushuang glanced at the number of people on the wall. It was about 100,000, which also showed that the others were on the other 3 walls. The wall he was assigned to was the same wall they came in. Other scenes outside the wall can be seen here, but it is certain that it should not be much different from this side. This trial is a bit interesting. Ghosts gather outside the city, and the Temple of Chishan will not let them guard this city, right? Jian Wushuang secretly guessed. As far as the number of ghosts and demons outside the East City is counted in hundreds of millions, there are 7 or 8 of them that are as powerful as Dao Jun, and there are no less than 100 at the half-step Dao Jun level. Looking at these people on the wall, Jian Wushuang shook his head. After 10 years of trial of Primordial Star, there were no more than 10,000 elites who survived, and the rest were Dayan immortals who were weak in strength and hid in the mountains from the beginning. Most of them were ordinary 9th rank perfect Dayan immortals. There are even more than 10,000 rank 9 Dayan immortals. There are only 1,000 people in the top level of Dayan immortal, and there are fewer at the peak level, less than 100 people. There are only a dozen extreme Dayan immortals. The half-walking monarchs were also wrapped in it. As for the powerhouse at the Taoist level, Jian Wushuang turned his head and looked far away. Another powerhouse standing on the city wall, Tear Heaven Dao Jun. There are 2 powerhouses at the Taoist level in Dongcheng, which are pretty good. On the entire Primordial Star, even if Ji Chaoyang is added, there are only 7 Dao monarchs. Maybe Huiqing and Wanxing Tiandi will each guard a city wall, Jian Wushuang guessed in his heart. After all, the strength of Huiqing and Wanxing surpassed them too much. The remaining city wall is probably Blood Moon, Lungshuang, and Ji Chaoyang. The strength of these 3 people is actually not too strong. Jian Wushuang is confident to defeat anyone, so it is reasonable to divide the 3 of them into a city wall. After verifying that he could not go to other city walls, Jian Wushuang began to calculate the battle power on other city walls. He had to take precautions, because this time there is really a danger of death. Ding. There was a crisp sound, and a deep gasp came from the Tianzhu in the city. Jiajiu Primitive Star, the second phase of the inheritance trial, will start in 3 days. The sound is like a puppet, without emotion at all. Inheritance trial. That has heritage. Jian Wushuang scanned the surroundings and looked at the foggy city, let alone inheritance, he didn't even have a brick. Receive the identity token now. As soon as these words came out, those Daanxians who had lost their identity tokens leaked out of joy, and for a while they were not afraid of the ghosts and charms of the outside world. Especially God Emperor Mo Long. As soon as he came out of the mountain, he learned that Jian Wushuang and the little bald donkey had the power of Dao Sovereign when he was studying the traces of those battles outside the city. After hearing this news, the Emperor Mo Long's heart was cold, originally thinking of turning over. Now there is no chance at all, unless he becomes the emperor. It is enough for him to be able to regain his identity token now. What if he loses those treasures? After he goes out, he asks his father for it, and can he not give it to him? Back in his own world, he is still the emperor. Of course, if you can get some treasures in the Temple of Chishan, it is the best. Jian Wushuang reached out and took the token flying from the Tianzhu. A little bit of strength was injected, and the token was instantly activated. He also saw the rules of this trial from the token. Temple of Chishan, the highest trial of Dayan Immortal, the second stage of Primordial Star Inheritance trial. Jian Wushuang glanced at the above content and couldn't help but breathe in a cold breath. There are actually 10,000 inheritances in Qiuhuang City. What a wealth of wealth! Jian Wushuang looked at Qiuhuang City with scorching eyes. Chapter 52-37. But these inheritances are not given to them for free. Everything is still based on strength, and the stronger the strength, the stronger the inheritance. The 10,000 inheritances in the city can't be the kind of powerful inheritance that Huiqing accepts. There are strong and weak points. From top to bottom, they are the inheritance of unique knowledge such as A, B, C, and D. Huiqing once said that the inheritance he received is unique, and it seems that it is not the same as these inheritances. Because these inheritances are all simplified versions, there are 100 copies of the first-class inheritance, and these 100 copies are the same content. Jian Wushuang was discouraged seeing this. If it were not the best match for him, he would rather not practice. It would be too wasteful of treasures and energy, and the estimate that could be improved was limited. If he is lucky, this first-class inheritance happens to be the Kendo inheritance, it would be best. But this chance is too small. Jian Wushuang can't even think about it. According to his calculations, this inheritance is probably a more popular inheritance, allowing all the origins of the genre to be cultivated. This is to maximize everyone's combat effectiveness. Class A has 100 copies, Class B has 1,000 copies, Handel has 3,900 copies, and the remaining 6,000 shares are all inherited from Ding class. Except Jian Wushuang, everyone became excited. Looking at the ghosts outside the city, the light in their eyes was even more terrifying than those with scarlet eyes outside the city. It is also mentioned in the rules that these ghosts are indeed similar to those of Emperor Dune, but these ghosts have another name. Forbidden Demon Lord. Also known as the Devouring Demon Lord. Jian Wushuang's heart moved and swallowed. Could it be? The more he thought about it, the more he was afraid. Jian Wushuang's eyes flickered. If it is really as he thought, then there will be no place for him to stand in this temple of forbidden God. But thinking about it again, he is still fine now, and there are a lot of Dian immortals that have been swallowed, but the temple of forbidding has not done anything to him. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang was relieved. Keep watching the rules. Inheritance trials and inheritance of the first-class inheritance requires 100,000 treasure points. Class B needs 10,000. It takes 1,000 for the Handel to wait. Ding needs 100. Jian Wushuang still agrees with this point, knowing that he only got 1,000 points of treasure when he ranked 21st, and Hua Qing only got 100,000 first. He didn't know how the Temple of Chishan was converted, but now on the entire primordial star, it is estimated that only Hua Qing can exchange Class A inheritance. But he just finished accepting the unique inheritance reincarnation. It is estimated that he will not be so stupid to accept the first-class inheritance directly. Be aware that in addition to inheritance, there are treasures that can be exchanged. On the identity tokens, a dazzling array. To exchange treasures, you need to enter the city lord's mansion in the city. According to Jian Wushuang's conversion, almost a treasure point is a pinnacle treasure. The legacy of Chishan Temple is a great treasure in itself. I'm afraid they won't keep the general treasures either. What can make Chishan Temple collect is a special treasure, and there are even many treasure suits. Jian Wushuang has 1,000 treasures. Wouldn't it be possible to exchange 1,000? Looking down, Jian Wushuang quickly dispelled the stupid idea. Because there are innate treasures, and even eternal treasures. Bafang Yunlong Seal. The simplified version of the eternal treasure, the Emperor can almost stimulate all the power, and it needs 1,000,000 treasure points. Printed. Forget it, it's uncomfortable. Although it is only a simplified version of the eternal treasure, its power also surpasses the innate treasure by much. If he can get it, Jian Wushuang still decides to exchange this treasure first. He had heard that the entire primitive universe was an eternal treasure, a powerful treasure that even the ultimate emperor did not have. Jian Wushuang looked greedy, but he still looked for a divine sword that suits him. Since the Great Wilderness War and the fall of the sword, he has not had a weapon to take advantage of. The divine sword obtained from the divine Emperor Mo Long can actually be used, but his strength has recently improved too fast, and the supreme longsword was quickly eliminated. Fighting against a powerful person at the Taoist level, ordinary treasures, even peak treasures, may break in the fight. The innate treasure is their magic weapon. For example, he wears the Madman Slaying Armor. This innate top treasure armor, which was obtained from Mo Long, is extremely powerful. Even now he can't activate all the powers. During the battle with Daojun Lungshuang, he used to resist the ice toughness of the Ice Crystal Phoenix. If there is no madness to destroy the armor, he will be the least seriously injured, but because of the battle armor, the strength of the ice blade is weakened by 99%. The last trace of strength on him was also offset by the inner armor. Now Jian Wushuang's supreme treasure is the supreme defense of his entire body. There is a Madman Slaying Armor, which can offset 99% of external attacks, and can be superimposed. Every time the same move, it will be weakened by 99%. The Ice Crystal Phoenix of Taoist Lungshuang, each attack is very single and the same in strength. It can't threaten Jian Wushuang at all, it can only play a containment role. In addition to the outer armor, there is an inner armor to protect the divine body. Jian Wushuang, who was originally a powerful divine body, coupled with the weak 90% strength of the inner armor, could not harm his divine body even if he passed through the outer armor. However, after seeing Wen Xing's strength with his own eyes, he felt that Wen Xing and Hui Qing were able to break his defenses. Now it is only half a step that the emperor can threaten him, and the opponents of the Taoist level can't even break his defense, especially the Blood Moon Taoist. There is no single powerful means. He stands and lets dealing with fights will not necessarily kill him. This is the aspect of the divine body. If you want to break his origin, you have to break his divine body first. The one who can do this is not the half-step emperor, but also the top powerhouse comparable to the half-step emperor. Besides, he has the innate treasure to guard the origin. Jian Wushuang was very confident in his defense, and all of this had to be thanked by the Morlong divine emperor. In addition to the imitation version of the eternal treasure, there are also a few top innate treasures. The price is around 100,000 treasure points, but unfortunately there is no long sword type. There is a magic sword among the top innate treasures, which is quite suitable, but it also needs 5,000 treasures, which he still can't exchange. Arcana points can be obtained by killing devourers outside the city. Sure enough, just like Jian Wushuang guessed, they really came to defend the city, but the benefits they gave were beyond his expectations. Devour the devil. Unlimited number. Attack Qiu Huang City in 19 times and hold a wave to get a lot of treasure points. Pass all of them and get special rewards. Now that the taboo demon lord outside the city had all retreated, Jian Wushuang didn't know how powerful each wave was. Just look at the combat power on the wall, let alone keep it to the end. It would be good to not die. The special reward is not marked, but it is certainly not simple. Now he has a lot of expectations for the Temple of Chishan. Not to mention special rewards, the treasures on paper that can be exchanged make everyone boil. Especially among the strange treasures, many of them are useful treasures to the emperor. Even if the emperor came, he was very excited, and these treasures are not available in the outside world, and can only be obtained in the Temple of Chishan. Chapter 52-38. In addition to these, there are rewards for the first stage. The top 10,000 powerhouses each get a ray of Emperor's Avenue. The top 1,000 strong, each person can get the inheritance of Ding, and can also be exchanged for the most precious point. This was the reward obtained from the original identity token. Jian Wushuang gently smashed the token. Ding et al.'s inheritance was generally tempting to him. At least Hui Qing's inheritance was needed to help him. Those weak inheritances did little to help him, and if he had that energy, it was better to understand his origin. Ultimate swordsmanship helped him to break through the 7th layer much more powerfully than those inheritances. After the token was crushed, 100 treasure points were added to the new token. Inheritance, treasures, special rewards, and even some exotic fruits that can enhance your strength. These things can have a much greater impact on them than in the first phase of the trial. Nowadays, many people in the city have begun to exchange treasures. Pieces of powerful pinnacle treasures, and even innate treasures, have flew out of the beam of light one after another. Haha, with this explosive magic war, I don't know how many times I have increased my strength, but I am against the peak power. A powerhouse who was originally only a top-level fairy, held the magic wand in his hand and laughed madly. The momentum and fighting spirit are condensed in their hearts. At this time, there is no fear of beginning, especially those Dayan immortals who don't have the treasure point to exchange the innate treasure. They are crazy now than ever before. Seeing others gaining the treasure and their strength skyrocketing, apart from envy, all they have left is the intent to fight to the sky. Among the top 1,000 strong, many people have begun to accept the inheritance of Ding et al. They are both the origin Dao of the 2nd rank, although there are strong and weak, the inheritance of Ding etc. is enough for them to use. Now these 3 days are for them to prepare for the battle, and they can improve a little. In stark contrast to these people is the God Emperor Mo Long. He now has peak combat power and no treasure on his body. However, his strength is on this city wall, and he can still rank in the top 100. Even if there is no supreme treasure, his consummation-level physical body combined with a powerful bloodline divine body can burst out with a combat power comparable to the limit Dayan immortal. If there is a powerful treasure, he can fully display the strength of the limit Dayan immortal. One move behind, always behind. Mo Long shook his head. At the beginning, His father advised him to master a fascinating school. Even if it is not in harmony with the Tao, he can be compared to the half-step emperor in Dian Immortal. But at that time, he already had the ultimate strength of the great immortal. In his father's world, he could be invincible at the same level. He felt that there was too much distraction to practice the genius, so it is better to understand the origin and wait for the emperor to cultivate the genius. Now he regrets it's too late. Hey! Mo Long sighed, sitting cross-legged on the head of the city lonely, looking at the devouring demon king like a tide, with a trace of fire in his eyes. He was about to turn around, only to find that he didn't know when a towering figure appeared beside him. Familiar armor, familiar people. Jian Wushuang? Mo Long quickly got up. Mo Long, how do you feel? Jian Wushuang's back both hands, also staring at the large swallowing demons outside the city. It's okay, it's much better than the rewards of the first stage trial. I am very excited about many treasures. Mo Long smiled awkwardly. Even if his blood jade palace is disassembled, it can be comparable to those tens of thousands of supreme treasures, and the combined value is similar to those of the supreme innate supreme treasures. Now that there is nothing, it is really difficult for him to obtain the best innate treasure with his own strength. More than 100,000. He heard that those who ranked in the top 1,000 only got 100 points, and the top 10,000 only got 10 points. As long as you have a record on your body, even if you only have a few hundred records, you can get a treasure. This is probably a reward for participation. The Chishan Temple is also rare and generous for such a while. A supreme palace is a pinnacle treasure. Among the 100,000 great fairy immortals on this city wall, many of the treasures in the hands of people are ordinary great treasures. With your strength, you plan to resist a few waves of Demon King's siege? Jian Wushuang asked without a match. Mo Long was a little embarrassed, but on this city wall, Jian Wushuang, as the only powerful Taoist monarch, was able to talk to him. It should have been a face-saving thing, but when I thought of the life and death of fighting with each other a few years ago, the unforgiving person is suddenly so powerful that he is unattainable. The more he thought about this, the less emboldened he became. According to the rules, the first wave has 100,009 ranks of demon masters. Each wave increases the intensity once, and I can resist up to the sixth wave at most. The first wave of demons with a rank of only 100,099 ranks were not enough to kill Jian Wushuang and Tiantian Daojun, so they could naturally resist. However, in the second wave, there were 1,000,000 rank 9 demon lords, and Jian Wushuang and Tear Heaven didn't dare to say that they could resist the 1,000,000 demon lords. At this time, everyone had to join together. The third wave is tens of millions, but fortunately, the first 3 waves are at rank 9 levels. Although the number is a bit large, it does not threaten their lives. Every 3 waves increase a level. The 4th to 6th wave is the devouring demon of the 9 revolutions consummation level is also the first 100,000, to the last 10 million. Mo Long's strength under the burst can only barely reach the limit level, and it is not bad to be able to survive the 6th wave. I didn't want to earn too much. Mo Long shook his head and said with a faint smile, the seeds of Motenghua only need 500 points to resist the 6th wave, it's almost enough. Yes, your father is an incredible powerhouse, and you don't have to fight like that. There was a powerful father or master who was much better than his peers in the beginning, and both Ji Chaoyang and Mo Long were people like plague. Ji Chaoyang belongs to that kind of character with very strong strength and talent. Even if he is not the only son, his father and the emperor have enough reasons to get a lot of treasures for this son. After all, he is the first person in the Ji family dynasty. Mo Long's father is different. His father is a powerful ruler. In their big world, his father speaks for words. He can give the treasure to whomever he wants. There is no need to consider others at all. But this is also the point. Mo Long had not been a manager since he was young, and his strength was average. With so many powerful treasures in one body, he could only exert the strength of the ultimate Dian Immortal. Although Mo Long was a little unconvinced, he couldn't refute it. If it weren't for his father, he wouldn't be better than Luo Hao. All 9th turns are complete, and the second stage Origin Dao is still at the 7th level. He Dao can barely merge, But the seventh layer of He Dao, even if it succeeds, will be much worse. Incompatible, and unable to break through. Jian Wushuang saw Mo Long's embarrassment on the side, patted him on the shoulder, didn't say much, just left the other side a mustard seed before leaving. Chapter 5239. There is a set of pinnacle treasures, enough for Mo Long to use. These treasures didn't help Jian Wushuang at all, so he gave it. He was not willing to help others, nor was he pitying, he just wanted to give Mo Long a chance. Jian Wushuang glanced at the East City wall, and found that the heaven-tearing Dao Jun was drawing some peak Dian immortals everywhere. Realizing that someone was watching, Tearing Sky also looked over, with the corners of his mouth rising. The two were facing each other far away, and some of the other strong men also found that their situation was not right. Dian Immortal, who had been drawn up, did not dare to stand in disorder at this time. He hadn't regarded Tear Heaven as his opponent from the beginning, but the opponent had an ancient aura, very similar to the Eye of the Beast God, and it seemed that Tear Heaven was staring at his Eye of the Beast God. A few years ago, Mo Long also said that the reason for his injury was also Tore the Sky, but when he was about to escape, he was overshadowed by the Emperor of the Deluo realm. He could have escaped without injury, but was eventually beaten to death by the Torn Sky. Jian Wushuang now understands that the treasure on his body has been spotted. There was a black flame in his eyes. Tearing the Sky wanted the eyes of the Beast God, and he also wanted to figure out where the ridiculous aura of tears came from. The two looked at each other full of gunpowder, but they separated in an instant. As for wooing people, he naturally couldn't beat the Sky. After all, he was a veteran Dao Jun, but wooing people was useless. The rules for defending the city are clear. You need a coach, 5 commanders, and 10 generals. These positions will be blessed by them. For example, Jian Wushuang now kills 199 rank demon kings and can obtain 10,000 supreme points. If he has the position of commander, then he can obtain 15,000 supreme points. Command can increase by 30%. The general is only 10%. The position of the coach is naturally very attractive, but everything is about strength. The coach is not selected, but killed. These 3 days were considered the last time for their preparations, and the next devouring demon siege was only 1 hour between each wave. At this hour, they can exchange treasures with the supreme treasure haul they just obtained, and as for the inheritance exchange, they have no time to practice. Many of the treasures on the token are pills and fruits that quickly restore the body and origin of the gods, and of course the price is outrageous. A fruit of life can instantly restore Dian Immortal's divine body to its peak, requiring 50 treasure points. All can be exchanged for a peak arcana suit. There is also the 9 turns concentration pill, which is a great medicine to repair the origin, and the price is more expensive than the fruit of life. If you need 300 treasure points, you can redeem a few ordinary innate treasures. No wonder Mo Long lost more than half of his source at the beginning, and he only fully recovered after consuming half of the treasures to restore his source. The reason why Jian Wushuang's precious spot did not move at all was just in case. The first 9 waves swallowed the devil, he was able to deal with it, but in the next 10 waves he had nothing to do, because only 9 waves were displayed. Even if the evolution speculates, it is not easy for him to pass all levels. When those devouring demon kings first appeared, many demon kings had reached the level of Dao Masters. Who knows if there were any demon kings at the half-step Dao Master level in the end. These Dian Immortals on the city wall can accompany him to the end, probably not many. Dian Immortal at the extreme level can barely pass the first 9 waves, and then there are only a few half-walkers left. This trial is all based on personal will. As long as you resist the first 3 waves of the guarantee, you can choose to retire and go to the city to practice. Looking at these fighting intentions, it is estimated that few are willing to retire early, all thinking of fighting desperately, unable to resist it and go on. There are not many people like Mo Long in the universe. After all, there are not many Fourth-Order emperors, and he is still an only child. Now there are only 2 kinds of people who can survive here. One is that they don't have a strong background, and the other is that they have a strong background. These people do not lack small opportunities, what they lack is this kind of heavenly opportunity. They either came from some powerful emperor families, or some Taoists in the sect. Whether it is a family or a sect, internal struggles are always more cruel than external ones. Fighting with the outside world, everyone goes up together, taller, and you can see what else. But the inside is different. The same generation are all Daein immortals. You are the only immortal, you are not embarrassed. Everyone else is the emperor, the pinnacle Daein immortal, but you are just an ordinary 9-rank perfect Daein immortal. This sense of gap can most arouse people's victory and defeat. The previous first stage trial was actually not that fair. Some ordinary 9th ranks were consummated, and they had no strength to fight, and they would die in vain. Now it's different. Regardless of your strength, you can at least fight the first 3 waves, get the treasure points, exchange for powerful treasures and treasures to quickly increase your strength, and you can continue to fight. Jian Wushuang, who saw through this, understood these people a little bit. 3 days only passed in an instant, and the Daein immortal on the city wall had already been unable to bear it, and at this time they were staring at the outside of the city. Those devouring demon lords have long since retreated, and now the outside of the city is empty, and is completely silent. The position dispute. I am not qualified to be the coach. I should be the one in charge of the position. Page, if you want to be the commander, at least you have to have the strength of a half-step Dao Jun. You are a limit Daein immortal, and you want to be the commander. According to the information from Tianzhu, Daein Xian, who ranked first in the first 3 waves, can be appointed as the coach, and each position is subject to the ranking. This is the fairest practice. At the beginning, Lord Tear Heaven, he really naively thought that they wanted to elect by themselves. What if there is no position? The first 3 waves of danger are very small. It is our opportunity. As long as we obtain enough treasure points, we can gain a strong inheritance. Everyone is eagerly waiting for the first attack of devouring demon lord. Jian Wushuang's body was suspended in the air, looking at the barrier in front of him. The barrier would disappear at the beginning of the trial, and he could also go out of the city to kill the enemy. A bell rang, ringing in the entire primitive world. All the Daein immortals on the primordial star heard this refreshing bell ringing, and raised their heads to the sky. The bell rang 3 times, and Jian Wushuang felt that his mental power had reached his best state at this time, which was simply amazing. Boom! Without waiting for them to think, the Tianzhu in the city behind them let out a roar. If the previous bell can refresh their minds, then the current roar would be a heavy punch, slamming them in the chest. The second stage of trial now begins. As soon as the voice of the puppet fell, the barrier outside the city began to collapse, and the barrier in the city behind him was still there. The first 3 waves were not completed, and no one wanted to enter the city. At the moment when the barrier just disappeared, the Daein immortal on the city wall was like a vicious dog, rushing out in an instant. Tens of thousands of top-level Daein immortals took the lead, knowing that this first wave of devouring demon lords with only 109 ranks was simply slaughtered for them. Chapter 5240. Jie Jie. In the darkness, a terrifying sound rang, and then a long black line that stretched for thousands of miles swept across. Jian Wushuang took a closer look. Good fellow. 100,000 devouring demons rushed towards them in neat rows. 10,000 in each row, a full 10 queues. Although the precious points given in the first 3 waves are few, it is related to the position of the coach and several other positions. Tore the Sky rushed to the forefront regardless of his face, and now it is speed that is completely fighting. Looking at these crazy people, Jian Wuming was not moved. He was still standing on the city wall, but an extra long sword appeared behind him. It was the ordinary supreme long sword, with its grayish-white body like grey stone. Kill the enemy. It's not who runs fast. Jian Wushuang is best at the domain, the stars, lakes and seas, the world of heart swords, the domain of beast gods, and the universe. Each one is a big killer to the group. Looking at these devourers, it reminded him of the ghosts he encountered in the great wilderness. Kang. Jian Wushuang drew out the divine sword, only to slash it with a flat sword, and an extremely magnificent sword light instantly turned into a river of millions of miles in size. The river water is full of fierce sword energy. The speed of this sword light is extremely fast. It only takes a breath to surpass those vying for fear of the Dian Immortal, and go straight to the devouring demon. The half-walking monarchs rushing in the forefront, as well as the sky-tearing monarchs, were all taken aback, and then turned their heads to look behind them. Jian Wushuang's mouth curled up and smiled at them faintly. Everyone, welcome. Although Jian Wushuang had a smile on his face, his eyes were fierce. Sword Qi is like a river rolling, and it meets the devouring demon in an instant. In front of the fierce Sword Qi, these devouring demon lords are like thin paper, which breaks with one touch. 100,000 devoured the devil, and one was strangled clean. Ding! The token on Jian Wushuang trembled. Just 1,000. Jian Wushuang originally thought there would be around 10,000, but he didn't expect it to be 1,000. In the leaderboard on the token, except for his ranking changed a bit, everyone else is still the same. First, Jian Wushuang devouring record, 1,000, that is 1,000 treasure points. However, in this ranking, Jian Wushuang can also watch the rankings of other original stars. Randomly glanced, it turned out that other primordial star powerhouses, like him, ate alone. Soon the battle on the other 4 walls was over, and the rankings changed a bit. The 10,000-star Heavenly Emperor was really overbearing, and he also obtained 1,000 treasure points. He had seen the strength of 10,000 stars, and 100,000 devouring demon lord estimated one. Fist can kill. Now he is tied for first place with Wanxing, followed by Hua Qing, Shueyue, Longshuang, Ji Chaoyang, and others. In fact, Hui Qing's strength can also be swallowed by one person, but his character dictates that he is not like Jian Wushuang and Wanxing, who can swallow it by himself. The other primordial stars also ended very quickly, without any muddling. Jian Wushuang didn't even get out of the city, so he killed 100,000 devouring demon lord in one fell swoop. This combat power is actually nothing to brag about, and Blood Moon and Lung Shuang can also do it. It's just that Wanxing is the only one of the strongest. Even if other people are dissatisfied, they dare to say more. Jian Wushuang is here, but there is also a Dao sovereign who can challenge him. He ran the fastest, didn't get the last treasure point, and didn't even touch those devourers. Both Shueyue and Longshuang have a large area, and the two can even divide it. He didn't get anything. For a while, he couldn't hold back his face, and he returned to the city wall with a black face. At this time, there were also many half-walking monarchs gathered around him, and some extreme great fairy. It seemed that he was about to put pressure on Jian Wushuang. Brother Tear Heaven, this Jian Wushuang is so selfish that he can swallow it all by himself. The demon monk has the power of a half-step emperor, and he knows that it is distributed to others, but he is a new Taoist monarch so rampant. It's just bullying too much. All the treasure points that were picked up for nothing have been taken by him alone, and the remaining difficult ones are left to us. This person has the strength of a strong man, but he does not have the style of a strong man. Yes. If so, it would be too unfair to us. A half-travel monarch frowned, and the first torn his face, his voice hoarse. Since he waited for me to be unrighteous, don't blame me for waiting for him. As soon as these words came out, those extreme Dian immortals were silent, and Jian Wushuang was a powerhouse at the Taoist level anyway, and it was okay to complain. They didn't dare to stumble this ruthless man. The half-step Dao monarch was okay, he could have survived in the hands of Dao monarch, but now he has obtained many innate treasures and some treasures that increase his strength. He was so energetic for a while that even Dao monarch didn't care about it. In fact, there is another meaning to them when they say that is, letting the Lord of the Heavens to come out and talk to Jian Wushuang. At this moment Jian Wushuang stood on the city wall, his expression unchanged. As a strong Dian immortal, even if the voices of those people were small, he could still hear them, he just ignored them lazily. As for making Kizuna, he disdains even more. Anyone who has the courage and is not afraid of death can come. He had just killed 100,000 devouring demon lord, the same breath made him tremble all over. It was pretty good if he didn't do anything with them, and it was too naive to even want to divide the most precious points. What he didn't expect was that Dao Shou Tian was really naive to find him. Jian Wushuang, I and others are all powerful Daoist monarchs. Are you too lost in doing this? Your powerful family knows, but more or less leave some for them. The Daoist swordsman just opened his mouth and stood in morality. The highest point of Jian Wushuang is a condemnation. This was the second person who made Jian Wushuang feel very stupid besides the strong in the big dream world. Tear the sky, you ran like a dog before, so you have a strong demeanor. Jian Wushuang stared at the opponent coldly, and then said, the 10,000-star heavenly emperor, and the strong on other primitive stars, kill them all by one person. Is there no demeanor for 100,000 devouring the devil? Facing Jian Wushuang's questioning, Dao Junter Heaven's expression moved, and he wanted to speak again. Jian Wushuang is not Hua Qing, and he will not save any face to these people at all. His aura suddenly rises, and his pitch-black shining armor exudes an aura of extinction, which makes everyone who surrounds them soften their legs and feet, almost planted. After a glance at them, Jian Wushuang yelled at Dao Shoutian, do you dare to say that to Wanxing? Do you dare to say that to the powerhouses on other primitive stars? If you dare, I can still look at you high. If you dare not, just get out of me. With the long sword hanging in front of him, if he dared to say one more thing, he would do it directly, although the Chishan temple stipulated that he could not kill the same race Dayan immortal. But I didn't say that I could not teach the other party. Daoist Ripper gritted his teeth and frowned. He only eased his mind when he wanted to speak. Now is not the time for internal fighting. If he fights Jian Wushuang, wouldn't it be cheaper for those half-step Daoists? Chapter 52-41. Only then did he realize that he was almost fooled by others. But now he only needs to take a step back and his ruin is not enough, but his reputation will definitely be unpleasant. Forget it. There are 2 more waves. The battle for the position of the coach is hiding in the key 3rd wave. Xian Tian comforted in his heart, but on the surface he gave a cold snort and turned to leave. Among the many powerful people onlookers, no one dared to speak, they could only retreat after tearing the sky. Those half-walking lords, all secretly cursing the tearing lords, are simply a sorrow, and they are even scared. On the contrary, none of these people hated Jian Wushuang. They were all secretly cursing for inaction. This is the strong one. The strong is not convincing on the surface, but convincing. These people said Jian Wushuang was selfish, but in their hearts they felt that this matter couldn't be more normal, and they would swallow it if they had that strength. This is the temple of Chishan. Who doesn't want to be the first? Who doesn't want to get the best inheritance? Yield. This word shouldn't appear in this world. The only truth is the strong eating of the weak, and everything else is false. After these people retreated, Jian Wushuang put away his sword and sat cross-legged on the wall with his eyes closed. The 100,000 devouring demon lord just now, just as he guessed, the Tao in their body was the devouring origin, and these origins were of great help to his extreme Tao, no less than devouring the Dayan immortal. How can Jian Wushuang let such a big supplement? He has already thought about it, and he will swallow it in the next wave. Hum. The horn sounded, and the second wave of devouring demons struck again. This time it was Million devouring the demon lord. These people didn't worry much when they arrived, they couldn't recognize 100,000, and even a half-step emperor couldn't kill him with one blow. This time, Taoist Tear Heaven maintained his style of being a strong man in the air, standing proudly on the top of the city alone, watching the other strong men rushing past him, and nodding slightly. When he turned his head to look at Jian Wushuang, he gave a cold snort, with a disdainful expression on his face, but his eyes revealed fear. Ouch! A heavy breath rushed towards his face. The millions of devouring demon lords were 10 times larger than the previous formation, and their aura was even stronger. This made those who rushed in the forefront stunned, but now it is exactly the best time to get the treasure point. I rushed forward without thinking too much. Just when these Dayan immortals and those devouring demons were less than 10,000 miles away, Jian Wushuang began to move. This time he didn't make a sword, but his heart moved slightly. The 5th floor of the ultimate kendo heart sword world. This trick was already very familiar to him. To him, he didn't feel the overload of the phantom sword at all. It was just a move of his mind, and a huge heart sword illustration covered the area of millions of miles. Exit. Spit it out. The sword intent within 1,000,000 miles rose, billions of sword lights fell, and when the devouring demon lord was about to rush to the Dayan immortals, he suddenly stopped. Those Dayan immortals were also stunned, looking up at the sky, countless sword lights that made their heart palpitations tilted down, and every sword light was enough to kill the top Dayan immortal. It is more than enough to deal with these level 9 devouring demon lords. Haha. Just like cutting leeks, Zhenguang instantly harvested the millions of devouring demon lords in the audience, leaving no one behind. Not only beheaded, but also swallowed them all one by the way, and in the end there was not even a trace of the aura that swallowed the demon lord left on the battlefield. Cutting the grass and rooting it out, everyone who saw his trick was dumbfounded. Tear Heaven Daojian's jerky movement before coming, the battlefield in front of him regained the dead silence. He simply couldn't accept it. The first wave was enough. The Daoist with the domain could easily be killed by a single blow, but this was the second wave, and it was enough to swallow the demon by a million. Even if the Emperor arrives in half a step, he is not sure that he will be wiped out in one blow. His face is darker than last time. Even he has decided that next time he will stay out of the darkness and wait for those devouring demon lords to come out. This time, after the Dayan immortal retired, they were surprisingly silent. If it was the level of the Taoist last time, then this time there was half a step of the Emperor's power. They all suspected that Zhen Wushuang was hiding his strength now, guessing that he had already half-stepped the strength of the Emperor. No wonder he is a life-and-death relationship with the demon monk. He may already have half the strength of the Emperor, otherwise he would not dare to stand for the demon monk in front of so many Daojun in the last war. 8 or 9 are not far from 10, we should stay away from him, and we can't provoke him anymore. Dianxian, who had previously said to give Zhen Wushuang a trip, was hiding far away at the other end of the city wall, fearing that Zhen Wushuang would look unpleasant to him and severely hurt him at this time. At that time, he will lose a lot. Everyone, prepare for the third wave. Well, the first 2 waves of Wushuang brothers are powerful and can be killed by a single person, and we have to take action in this third wave. Haha, you are too shameless, I think we can live without you in the third wave. On the city wall, the hostility of the last time was missing, but it became more harmonious. This is the respect for strength. The first time they felt they could provoke, the second time they were really afraid. Even Tear Heaven Daojun is now uncertain. If it were in the past, he still has confidence. www.mtlnovel.com. But now Zhen Wushuang's demonstrated strength is too strong. Even if he broke the seal and used that treasure to increase his strength for a short time, he didn't have any confidence to deal with Zhen Wushuang. Damn, how could he be so strong? The surface of the Taoist Tear Heaven is calm, but his heart is burning with anger. The ancient aura on Zhen Wushuang's body is very similar to his secret treasure, and the 2 treasures must be related. If he can get it, maybe he will have the hope of being comparable to the Emperor Banbu. Looking at it now, hope is too slim. Not reconciled. Torn days roared in his heart. The treasure in his body allowed him to become Dao sovereign from the peak of Da Yangxian. Once all the seals were unlocked, his strength could skyrocket again. I am afraid that few Dao sovereign would be his opponents. If he gets the ancient secret treasure from Zhen Wushuang, he can still rise again. Hope is now shattered. Nothing. Maybe he was spotted by Zhen Wushuang. He is now a prey, and anyone who has the intent to kill must be killed first. The old saying "the city does not deceive him." Now he can only go one step at a time, but he will not give up the position of coach. Even if the restriction in the body is opened in advance, he will also fight for it to increase the treasure point by 50%, which is too tempting. In the first 2 waves, there were only 11,000 treasure points, but in the third wave, there were 100,000 treasure points. As long as he could kill 60%, he could seize the position of coach. He snorted, and said in his heart, "Wait." This time, Daoist Sundering Heaven jumped off the city wall and waited outside the city in advance. This scene made Dayan Immortal on the city wall astounding. What about the strong demeanor? One seated on the wall, motionless, his breath soaring into the sky. A man like a hungry wolf, salivating his saliva. Those half-walking lords looked down on Daoist swordsmen even more in their hearts. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.